can do websites and all
yeah,
the rest.
and I've done that, and there's reports that have come out showing that the current information has been skewed. So here's what I'm going to do, and it's one of those rare times that I'm going to do this. Actually, it's probably not that rare, because I will not discuss an issue if I do not have the information in front of me, because at that point this is my view, it's your view. But I want to finish this.
Go ahead.
CO2, that seems to be the big thing, right?
Well, it's one, but yeah,
but
go ahead.
it's one of them, okay. People going, well, we need to cut down the CO2. It's too high. Well, there's been times in history past where it was higher and the Earth grew. Global warming versus global cooling. In the 70s we had the new ice age was upon us. Oh my gosh, we need to stop doing this because the ice age, oh wait, no, now we're having global warming. Trees need CO2. I prefer to be warmer than colder. That's just me, and plants like it warmer. And the trees that are absorbing that CO2 are giving us oxygen to breathe. God created an incredible universe when he did that symbiotic relationship between the two. So.
Go ahead, okay. But the issue that we have is we can actually measure CO2, okay?
Yep.
So 1958, George Keeling starts measuring CO2 at Mauna Loa. Okay. So we have literally daily measurements of CO2 since March 1958.
Okay.
It has gone up consistently there. So there's a question of more CO2 versus less.
Okay.
One of the things that's happened is, in fact, you're probably familiar with the Cambrian explosion.
I've heard of it.
Okay, that was a period 500 million years ago where all...
Oh, yes, okay. Now I know I've heard of it, okay.
Lots of different life forms all of a sudden start appearing in the
500 million years ago? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a hard time with these numbers because they don't have proof that it was actually 500 million years ago, but
actually they do.
But in the historic geologic past.
In the historic geologic past. So where's the failure to date 500 million years ago coming from? I mean, you've made a claim that they can't date it.
So again, here's the thing. No, I didn't say they can't date it. I said what they have done is the data that they use is they stop with all these photos that they're showing us of how tragic this is, they stop.
So when was photography invented?
Back in the 1800s, back in the late 1800s, there's pictures. I have personally seen those photographs. So, okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to ask
you go back 100 years and then it stops. Now the question is, when was photography invented?
Back over 100 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And the pictures, the pictures of that we see to scare us stop before, so that it's showing what I'm doing. I'm on my phone putting up the rise of CO2. What they're showing the mountains with all of this ice on it, how wonderful the glaciers are, but what they are not showing out there is they are not showing the period before that where we are seeing very similar types of photographs today. That is what has been hidden from the public out there.
You would have to show me that,
so
because I've actually done a lot of looking on this.
So I'm going to suggest that people go to look up George Taylor. George Taylor. George Taylor, oh, I'm offline, so I can't do that. George Taylor used to be he was Oregon's climatologist for several years. So anyway, and George Taylor has done a lot of research on it. But you know, there's other issues that are more important than the cyclical global warming, because and by the way, I totally believe that this comes out of the UN resolution, the Agenda 21, and now Agenda 2030. And so there's a whole lot of stuff. Great reading, if you can't go to sleep, is to go online and look up Agenda 21. And do it from the UN Council. That's one of the things, Joe, I'm a stickler on. And I do this. When somebody goes, oh, well, check this out. Okay, what's your source documentation?
Right.
I want to know where you got it from. Well, I got it from this publication. Okay, great. What's their source documentation? Well, they got it from this one. Okay, wonderful. I will track it back to get to the original source documentation, because that's where we need to start from. Instead of saying, well, this person said it out here and this one said it out there. And so I personally, on issues that people ask me to investigate, I will do as much background check as I can to be able to come to my own independent conclusion based upon historic data on things that we've got that. But let's talk about some other huge issues, because global warming is a ruse. That's why they called it climate change, because, okay, well, we don't want to call global warming, and the climate changes, and I believe that it's cyclical. And I understand that I'm in Eugene, and I understand that it is theoretically primarily Democrat-based, and I'm a conservative.
But what does that have to do with the scientific evidence for climate change?
It has to do with what it is that people want to divert the issues from. And we've got bigger issues out there than to worry about the sky is falling, and that in the next 300 years we're going to see a rise of ocean water up to 12 feet, and oh my gosh, it's going to do all this stuff. And we don't need to worry about it.
300 years, I think we're probably looking at 50 to 60 feet. But yeah,
you know, I mean,
the net result, if we melt all of Antarctica, is 263 feet.
And see, there's, I'm not going to discuss it, because I've not researched the data. I did grow up in Southern California, and I can tell you that the air is cleaner today than it was when I lived there in the 60s and 70s. Well, I left there in 75. It is cleaner.
Yes.
Why is it cleaner? It's cleaner because people went, wait a minute, this is not good. We need to come up with some way to clean the air and stop doing all these polluting things out there. And so it has changed, and it has made a difference. China says that they cannot clean the air because they don't have the money to it. Boulder Dash, they do. The technology exists. So, you know, the world wants to hold the United States to a higher standard, but yet the world does not want to hold that standard.
What would happen? I went to a lecture not too long ago that said that about 85% of the world's investment capital is now being plopped in China. So what would happen to that investment capital if China said, okay, it's time to clean up the environment, like the United States said during the 1960s and 70s that it was time to clean up the American environment, the U.S. environment?
I can't answer that question. And it's not, so I bring up, the only reason I bring that up is because it's not okay for the U.S. to do this, but it's okay for China to do this.
No,
but
I'm not saying it's okay for China. It's not okay for anyone to be doing it.
And if we have
but you brought up earlier the issue of jobs. So let's go back there a little bit.
I'm more concerned about jobs in America than I am jobs in China or jobs in India or jobs in Russia. I'm going to be honest. I live in Oregon. Right. I want to see jobs here. So let's talk about jobs.
Okay. So where did the jobs that were in America go to?
They went to China. Yeah, they went to India.
Why?
Because, okay, I want to talk about the things that I'm going to be able to affect as a candidate for the United States House of Representatives, okay? We have a big issue in this country, and you asked me about issues, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch because I want to talk about jobs, and I'm going to wrap it into the next less than 13 minutes here.
Okay, go ahead.
We have an issue where we have a House and Senate, U.S. House and Senate, that constantly violate their constitutional oath of office. So they violate their oath of office, which says that they will uphold the Constitution of the United States, in a nutshell. We have this land out here. We call it public land. Now, I want to start off with saying, I like our public land. Who does that land belong to? It belongs to we, the people of Oregon. The Constitution is very clear on that. It says the only land that the federal government is allowed to own, that they purchase, not take, is 10 square miles, which is Washington, D.C., and other land used for primarily ports and forts, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings.
Okay.
Why is it then that they claim ownership of the Willamette National Forest, Ioshtala National Forest, the range lands, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? They cannot legally do that. It is a violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and the 10th Amendment, which says these things not specifically enumerated are left to the states. Now, because we've had that, we've got all this timber out here. And you want to talk about losing jobs?
So how fast should we cut it down?
There is so much timber out there. Cut it down. It's burning up every year. We are burning up millions of acres of timber because people are going, oh my gosh, we can't cut the trees because the spotted owl is going to die. Well, tell the barred owl to leave the spotted owl alone. The barred owl is a bigger danger than the spotted owl, which is not indigenous to the Northwest, it was transplanted here.
Yep.
So we
Like
need
rabbits
to
in Australia.
we need to get the land back into local management, back down to the county level. Let the county people manage that land. If the state or the county say we can sell some of that land off, let them sell it off. It is not going to become a concrete highway, and that's what people believe is going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It's going to be clear cut is what it's going to be.
Clear cutting is fine because it has to get replanted. 5 trees for every one that gets cut down.
But
and
that didn't happen until the 1960s
okay,
and
it doesn't
70s.
matter, Joe. See, here's the thing. This is where I'm going to get adamant. It doesn't matter that it didn't happen until then. It matters that it happens now. And the amount of timber that is growing every year is greater than the amount that they say is sustainable for cutting. We can cut a lot more. Unfortunately, I do not have the figures in front of me. But we have lost, since the mid-1980s, thousands upon thousands of high-paying jobs.
Yep.
The 4th Congressional District covers Lynn County, Lane County, most of Benton County, all of Coos County, all of Curry County, most of Josephine County, and all of Douglas County.
Yep.
Huge, huge timber areas. We are talking a real unemployment rate in the double digits in every single one of those counties.
Okay,
They
well,
were not
a
replaced.
good place to start might be with, instead of aerial spraying of pesticides against broadleaf, herbicides against broadleaf plants, is hire some people to actually go clean that stuff out.
The problem is that because the federal government is busy locking down this land, they can't even do that. I talked to somebody when I was running for office 2 years ago up in outside of John Day. Her husband had put together a business plan where they would be able to go out there, do some clearing of the fuel, the underbrush, to clear that out in a manner that would make sense, that would be beneficial to the wildlife, beneficial to the environment, and the amount of hoops that man had to jump through just to satisfy the federal government that's illegally telling them what to do, he said forget it. It was costing him, it was the amount of money he was having to put out to do all this stuff because this regulator wanted this. Oh, well, it's not their jurisdiction. It's their jurisdiction. So here's the thing. We need to get the land back to management and ownership by the state and down to the county level.
Okay.
That's important. The other issues that we have a federal debt of over $19 trillion.
That's right.
We can start saving money by getting rid of the BLM because we don't need them.
And where did the federal debt come from?
The federal debt comes from the government trying to appease everybody that gives them money and doing things that is not their job.
The last year of the Clinton administration, we actually had a balanced budget.
I can't go back to the Clinton administration. In 2000...
But what changed that caused a rapid growth in this again? Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. You promised me we weren't going to get, and you said, let me rephrase, he didn't promise. You said we would not get adversarial, and we're going to get adversarial here.
Okay.
Because this is not about what Clinton has done. This is about what has gone on. Both Republicans and Democrats and independents are guilty of this, okay? I put that out there, and I say that almost everywhere that I go. Yeah. Nobody is immune from this. Why did that happen? Yeah. I can't tell you why it happened other than they want more and more power, and it's wrong. Okay? Thus, we need term limits. If you have term limits, we're not going to have this power mongering that's going on because you lose connection with what's going on out there in the country. I can tell you that in 2010, the federal debt was right around $10 trillion. It is almost double that today. It is 90% higher, and who has been president that entire time has been Obama. He had the triplicate. He had the executive, him. He had the House and the Senate, and he couldn't even get a budget passed under them. The problem that, let me finish.
The triplicate has to be strong enough to stop a filibuster in the Senate, and he did not have that.
Which is fine. But they passed these bills.
It's not fine, because that's where it came from.
Okay, the way that our government was set up was never to act fast anyway, but yet it acts too fast. We have in Albany, Oregon, where I'm from, a couple years ago, Homeland Security gave Albany, Oregon in the neighborhood of $2 million for 2 firefighter EMTs and for a fire engine. Why are your federal dollars going to Albany, Oregon to pay for 2 firefighter EMTs and a fire truck? That is not the job of the federal government. Oh, but if nobody else gets it, somebody will. No, let's stop it.
So
let's
that's
stop
a small ticket item. Let's look at the big ticket items.
It doesn't matter. Every little, see, that's everybody says, it's just $1 million. It's only $2 million in the grand scheme of things. It's not that much. No. Franklin said a penny saved is a penny earned. Let's start saving our pennies. Let's get the federal government out of our lives. Let's stop spending. It is not the job of the federal government to pay for free buses in Corvallis, Oregon, to provide a grant. That is not the job of the federal government. You show me in the Constitution where that's the job, and I'll say, okay, you can't find it because it doesn't exist. So let me tell you what I'm going to bring.
Actually, I can find some of that stuff. But
well,
yeah,
but
okay.
it's not there, and the Commerce Clause does not apply. You have to go back to the original intent of what the founders meant, and that's the important thing. And again, people go, well, the precedent of the Supreme Court says this. You cannot, that's not constitutional law, that's precedent law.
But you're going to find a lot of debate in the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers.
You are.
Concerning most of these issues, and so it really wasn't even settled at the time. So somebody says, oh, the intent of the founding fathers.
But we have to go with what was ratified at that time, and that's what we go with. So we have to go with their intent. Yes, there was going to be disagreements. That's why it took from 1787 to 1788 to get it ratified, is because they insisted on the Bill of Rights. And aren't you guys glad that we have the Bill of Rights out there? Without the Bill of Rights, you wouldn't have the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. You would not have the Second Amendment, freedom to bear arms. You would not have all of these amendments that we have out there without those Bill of Rights.
How about Amendment number 4, which includes search and seizure? Okay. Actually, last year was the first year that the police confiscated more stuff than thieves stole nationally. That's actually, it first appeared in an editorial by George Will, but does appear to be correct. So what about that one?
Okay, I can't answer stuff, again, that I don't have the information on. These are the issues. One, we've got a runaway spending problem. We don't have a tax problem, we have a spending problem, and we've got to stop it. We can't keep giving away stuff because somebody's going to pay for it. Okay? We've got to lower taxes, we've got to get government out of the way so that people can work and go to work and create jobs. They've got to, and I gave you that example of the guy out there near John Day. The second issue, we've got a Social Security system that is broken. It is socialized government, which started back under the New Deal. It's broken. We're giving away, there's more people living on Social Security today. For every one person working, 3 people were drawing off of it. When Social Security was started, the average life expectancy was roughly 63 years old. Today, a married couple that retires at age 65, there is a greater than 80% chance that one of them will live to be into their 90s. So they're going to be drawing off of that for over 30 years. There's not enough money to sustain that. We need to come up with a better system, which, by the way, I gave to then Senator Bob Packwood. Let's see, my daughter is 34 years old, so 22 years ago. When I gave him that plan, and this is what he said to me. He said, "Jo Rae, there are many senators that have come up with a similar plan. They will not touch it because this is the death nail in their political coffin." Now, let me interpret what he just said to me on that day. Yes, and that was verbatim what he said. It's stuck in my mind so strongly. What he said is, you know what, our political careers as senators are more important than the viability of the Social Security system. That was the interpretation of what he said. They knew it was broken 22 years ago. It's broken today because they're taking out too much money. Okay? It doesn't work. It's a Ponzi scheme. If that was done in today's open market, whoever did it, they'd be thrown in jail. 3 people drawing off of 1 person paying in. You can't do it. So we've got the